What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Simple Dad Podcast. I'm your host, Quincy Forte, and I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, Mr. Remon of the Urban Advocate. What's up, sir?
No, just talking. Nah, man, I'm good, man. Been moving around, doing a lot, staying busy, man. So everything's good. How about yourself?
I have been doing the same, a lot less move. I mean, except for today, I went to three different places just because we had emergency grocery store items that we needed, and we went to sell some stuff or get some cash for some of the baby stuff that we don't need anymore. So other than that, just been chilling around the house, trying not to gain the freshman 55 from COVID.
How's that working out?
Actually, surprisingly enough, I have been losing weight, which
Really?
is interesting. I've been trying to eat better, but it's really hard. Last week for Father's Day, I actually made brownies. And I don't let brownies go to waste around here. So
Right.
I actually ate them slower than I normally eat them.
Yeah.
Because she looked up and like a few days later, she's like, "Man, there's still brownies in here?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I just been kind of chilling back." But the first day I went hard, and
Mm.
they were like the big chunks, and so I ate like two slices. I threw some ice cream, a little bit of whipped cream on top of it.
Yeah.
But then I just felt sick afterwards. And I was like, I ate way too much. So yeah, I've just been chilling on it. But yeah, surprisingly, I've been losing weight, which is interesting.
You enjoy your Father's Day?
I did enjoy Father's Day, man. I
Because
got
fathers don't get a whole lot of love, man.
no, it was good. I got a vinyl Dave Matthews Crash album, which is like the first time it's ever been run on vinyl. So it's actually kind of cool because I was just telling Ashley, I was like, man, I don't have any Dave Matthews vinyl, which is interesting.
As
Because I
big of
think
a fan of this Dave Matthews as you are.
yeah, man. And so it's kind of cool to get all the stuff that I've listened to, CD to digital to back to vinyl. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of a pain because like each song is like 8 minutes or 6 minutes or something on some songs. So there's only three songs per side of the album. So like you have to flip it like every three, and then there's four records. And so I'm like, man, okay. But no, it was good. It was good.
Yeah, I just think, I'm just like, man, we're just being a Simple Dads podcast, we got to make sure we recognize Father's Day.
For sure. And I was gonna say, I think one contributing factor to Father's Day probably getting a lot more attention is the fact that the situation that we're in. Nobody can go anywhere. Nobody can be out
Right.
with their friends at the lake on Father's Day and be like, "Oops, well, hey, I'll come by for dinner later." It's like you're either like in the house or you're like, "Man, ain't nothing else to do." When the
Well, I mean, there was a bunch of people at the beach, but
well, I mean, if you're listening to this today,
not the smartest campers in in the bunch.
well, Tarrant County, which is really funny, because we're recording this June 28th, 2020, right? And so I got into a not really an argument, but it was like a Twitter back and forth on COVID cases. And this gentleman, I was speaking ill of Tarrant County apparently because one of the news anchors for like NBC5 was like cases or it's getting worse. And this was at the time in May where we were actually flattening the curve overall.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's definitely it's still going up in some places, especially Tarrant County. And I guess this guy was from Tarrant County. He's like, yo, we're the ones flattening, like we're doing this stuff. And
Yeah.
like I keep thinking how petty of me it would be to go back and find this thread and show him that over the past week, I've seen like 1,000 new cases from Tarrant County. And I would be
Wow.
like, yo, man, just yesterday, y'all reported 392 new cases. Like, what you mean
Right.
y'all are? But I realized that is highly petty, and he would probably not be too thrilled with that. So I
Very
just kind of leave
receptive
that
of it.
alone.
Yeah. Right.
Kind of leave that alone. But I do want to go back to that Twitter thread and just post a link to be like, boop.
What were you saying again?
Yeah. No, it's just interesting, man. And to see like um so many people who are just so eager to get back out and doing the normal things. With
Right.
me, I'm like, what did somebody, I can't remember, I think it was Rodney Blue, had said, like, why are y'all so eager to be back around these people that y'all don't even like anyway? Like, why are y'all so eager to just be out and about around people you don't like?
Well, I think, part of it is just, I think people are a little fatigued of being inside, you know what I mean? And like, because we're social creatures, and, sometimes you need, not only are we social creatures and we need to interact with other people and other human beings, but it's also like, need to change the scenery because it's the same old thing for 3 months straight. Can start to, that's kind of like the science behind solitary confinement, right? Like when you
Mm-hmm.
go to jail, like they put you somewhere by yourself where you're in the same area for this small area for extensive period of time and you're by yourself. And it's like, that's one of the reasons why they call it the bing, because
Right.
like you snap while you in there, right? So, I think people just kind of feel like they've been in solitary confinement for the last 3 months. And it's like, all right, I need to get out. And even if it's people I don't like, I need to be around other human beings. So I get
Uh,
it. I
yeah.
get it. But at the same time, it's kind of short-sighted because if we do what we're supposed to be doing now, I think eventually, we're going to be able to get back to semi-normal. But in order for us to get there, we kind of have to do what we're supposed to be doing now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to kind of develop a more of a long term like thought process instead of short term.
Everything we do is short term, though. Social media and all that stuff. Everything
Yeah,
is for the instant
instant.
gratification.
Right. Yeah.
And so we have no sense of delayed gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever we see an opening, it's like I was I've been watching these documentaries on Netflix about like Earth and like animals and stuff like that. It's pretty much Animal Planet. Everything you used to
Mm-hmm.
watch on Laserdisc back
Yeah.
in elementary school,
Right.
and like I mean, it's kind of like the cheetahs and stuff like that. Like as soon as they see a window, they're like, "Pew, let me take off and go get
Mm.
this wildebeest or whatever." And so
Yeah.
I think we just look for the smallest glimmer of sunlight or gap that's a break from, like I said, we talked about this a number of times, sitting with yourself or sitting with your nucleus. Just be like, oh, let me get out. Oh, I got to get out. Because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
before we were going to work, we were in traffic, we were cussing at the
Mm-hmm.
traffic because we didn't want to be in traffic. And like, I
Right.
can't. I wish that I had these hours back in the day. Like I drove 2 hours daily to work. That's 5 days a week. That's 10 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
40 to 50 hours a month of driving,
Right.
and then you
Right.
multiply that by 12.
Right.
So that's what, 600 hours that I'm in the car
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
driving. And so it's like, well, what do I do with those 600 hours now that I don't have to complain about traffic, that I'm not hustling and bustling? And
But then I think there's a lot of it, we're kind of like we're never satisfied. Like you complain about the fact that you have to sit in traffic for an hour. Now you don't have to. Now you're complaining about the fact that you have to be at home all day.
man, I
You know
wish
what
I
I mean?
could sit in traffic for an
Right,
hour every day.
right. You know what I mean? So, like, I think I remember. I think I read an article where a guy was talking about how, um, that time where he was sitting in traffic, it was kind of like, you know, on his way to work, back and forth. It was kind of like his alone time. It's time where he
Mm-hmm.
could kind of get away from the family, get away from work, and you know what I'm saying. It's kind of his time to kind of center himself, and now he doesn't have that. So it's interesting.
I mean, it was a time I agree with the alone time. Like, 'cause I didn't even listen to music on the way to work. I listened to
Right,
podcasts, and so it
right.
was kind of like my enrichment time. Like on the way to work, I would listen to podcasts, and on the way home, I was either talking to Ashley or I was listening to music because like I've
Hmm.
been hearing talking all day, and then I'm like,
Right,
yo, I
right,
just need something like mindless or whatever to just like
right.
get me
Somewhere
home.
you don't
And
have to don't somewhere you don't have to think as much.
right. So I feel it. I feel it. It's got, I mean, now
Mm,
like working from home, and like this is my second soiree or gig where I'm working from home. Like, 'cause I was working from home for 2 years at one point.
mm,
And it's hard to find the balance and the separation because like once you turn off the computer and say, all right, well, I'm done. It's 5 o'clock or whatever.
yeah,
Um, you end up not having the separation because if somebody IMs
right,
you, like you, I have
right,
my IM on my phone, and I'm
right.
like, oh, you know what? I could do that real quick. So it's real easy to go back behind the desk and not have that separation.
Like one of the things, like when I was working in corporate America, man, it was like when I first started, like I was taking my laptop home every day, and then at some point, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave my laptop here. I'm gonna lock it up and go home because just so I could get that separation. And even now, it's kind of like, people have gotten so used to me working around the clock,
Hmm.
that they be trying to reach out to me at like 8, 9 o'clock and not realizing like, yo, I shut everything off at like 8:30. Like I might even turn my phone off at 8:30. Like my computer is turned off. I shut everything down just so I can like just so I'm not like my whole day is work. You know what I mean?
But
So just to get some sort of separation.
yeah, I think it's good to establish that boundary though. Like, I mean, set it up from the get go and have those conversations and be like, yo,
Mm,
like, so these are my office hours. Anything outside of that,
mm,
I'll get you back tomorrow. Or even if
right,
you set up an autoresponder on your text messages, like,
right.
I don't know, even know how that's done or if that's possible, but it would be nice to have an autoresponder, be like, hey, you reach me after hours, I'll get you tomorrow. Like,
Right.
as a matter of fact, I need to figure out how to do that.
Me too. Now that you said that, I need to see if my phone has that feature.
Autoresponder. I have the do not disturb on, so like after 9 o'clock, um, if you text me, I won't get it till the next day. Like it literally will not send me a notification, and it's linked to my phone.
Yeah.
So my phone even goes in, or my it's linked to my watch, and so even my watch goes in a do not disturb at 9 o'clock. It's like nope, not sending any alerts from your phone to you.
And then because I was just messing around with my phone earlier. I got a new phone, and I just saw that do not disturb on there, and I was like, I kind of want to try it, but then I would hate for some like it to be an emergency or something,
Well,
and
you
then
can
people
do.
can't get a hold of me.
So this is the beauty of Apple. Like you can do it to where your favorites can still get through. Like so, if you have a favorites list set up, if you call me, like you have to call me, you can't text me. But if you call me, it'll
Mm,
ring through
mm,
on my
mm.
phone.
Okay.
So yeah, but yeah, it's kind of cool, man. And you should, like I said, you got to have those boundaries and guidelines. And at this point, I'm like, man, who would be texting me at like after 9 o'clock? Everybody knows. Like if you know me, you know I go to bed at like 8:30, and like the only time I'm
Hmm.
up this late is like recording a podcast or if I have work to do,
Right.
um, papers to grade and stuff like that. So yeah, anything past 8:30, I'm usually like passed out. So,
Yeah. Amen.
uh, so what it's funny because I'm not the only dad or adult or person, parent. And not even a parent. Like I find as we get older, like it's not as taboo to be in bed by like 8:30. Like most people are like there's an exception of people who will stay up to 11, 12. But like I think that I feel like that's an exception.
Man, you know what? Like for me is it's a little difficult because I don't really have like regulars. Like I have very awkward sleeping
Yeah.
habits anyway. Like I wake up in the middle of the night all the time.
Yeah.
But it's strange because like I did all of my throughout my 20s and early 30s, it was kind of like team no sleep. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like me and Swab Burgundy, we had our little saying is like no sleep till Brooklyn. You know what I'm saying? Like, ode to the old Beastie Boys joint. But it was kind of like recently, like within the last couple of years or so, like I've really been getting my sleep. It is like, yo, I'm happy because I'm no longer suffering from like sleep deprivation.
Yeah. And that sleep is important, man. That's when your body like recovers and does its stuff,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
more forgiving if you actually get the right amount of sleep.
yeah. So
So yeah, man. Cheers
I
to
think
the 8:30 bedtime.
yeah, I think like you said, the older you get, the more you start to value that sleep, man.
Well, and then you realize that you're really not missing anything. All the years of staying up thinking you were missing something, you're like, man,
Right.
I didn't really miss nothing. I could have been in my bed sleeping.
Right. Exactly.
Uh, so let's get to today's topic. So you sent
Yo.
me an interesting uh, text message the other day based on something you were reading.
Hmm.
Why don't you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. So, I took a little. It's kind of like a little psych test.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a little personality quiz. It was a 50. It was like a 50 question test or whatever. And I just kind of stumbled upon it because it was like, as of late, I've been having to do a little marriage counseling where I'm acting as the marriage counselor.
The person who's
And
not married.
yeah, I'm the one. I don't know why all my married friends come to me with their marriage problems, but it
Awesome.
happens.
Yeah.
And so just kind of listening to some of their issues and listening to how how they've been kind of trying to work through their issues and their problems and their disagreements, and trying to not only be a better, advisor for them in their
Hmm.
situations, but there is a point where in the future at some point I do want to kind of settle down and get married. So just kind of like working on me at the same time while I'm trying to help other people
Yeah,
and
for sure.
trying to understand myself. And um, so in the process of doing that, I kind of stumbled upon this psych test. And this test was basically to help you kind of understand um, your attachment style in relationships.
Okay.
And one of the things that I like when it got to like the summary and it started talking about how the um some of the things that you experience as a child, how that affects how you relate to other people and in relationships as you get older in your adult life.
Okay.
So I thought that was real interesting, and that's when I sent it to you. I was like, yo, we might need to discuss this.
Um, yeah, so can you read that first paragraph of that quote?
Yeah, so let's see. Okay, so it says many psychologists believe that the foundation of our relationships in adulthood can be traced to attachment style we develop as infants. Theorists that study child development believe that in most cases, children develop a particular attachment style within the first year of their life, often depending significantly upon the personality of their parents and their parenting style. For instance, an emotionally available and responsive parent will most likely provide a child with constant source of warmth and security. An emotionally dismissive or unavailable parent, on the other hand, will likely have a child whose security needs and desire for warmth and responsiveness are not met. The development of the attachment relationship with the caretaker is a crucial point of a child's life, as it has a profound effect on the emotional growth and the health of their future relationships.
Mm, yeah. No, and that's super deep. And I would say that it goes past 1 year,
Hmm.
because I think it's I think it's those first formidable 3 to 4 years,
Mm,
because even within a year, it's kind of like, from my perspective, it's more of the animal instinct piece of it. Like, you just know your source of nurture. Like, Marley already knows her mom is her biggest sense of security,
right.
just because that's food, that's nurture,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's security, that's where I came from. Like, she recognizes the
Mm-hmm.
heartbeat, the scent, like she can
Yeah.
smell Ashley walking in a room. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of primitive at this point, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
still going to be primitive all the way up until a year. But like, as those emotions start to develop, so you're looking at your terrible twos or whatever, and it's just I would say that the twos are the times to where you're seeking to express, but you don't have a full understanding of expression, and
And you
what
also
those
don't
pillars are.
necessarily have the vocabulary to express everything that you're feeling.
Right. And then moving to three, like, you're still acting somewhat primitively, but
Mm-hmm.
now you have expression and you have a little bit more words.
Mm-hmm.
But three, if you think about it, two and three, um, your children are typically at a daycare, right? So um, the sense of security uh, and shaping of those emotional states are also now impacted and influenced by how other kids act. And then you have a revolving door sometimes of daycare teachers, um, who have their own mixed bags of emotions, but they're with their
Mm-hmm.
kids for sometimes up to 10 hours a day.
Right.
Um, and so it's kind of a whole mixed bag. And then same thing with four. Now you have even more language and more understanding of feeling, and more understanding of separation of teachers and parents. But now you have this idea of sort of defiance and individuality. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that goes all
Mm-hmm.
the way up to six, because we're still
Mm-hmm.
dealing with that now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, that's very interesting, man. But that's a great find. What did you see, I guess, in that? Because you had brought up another point, how, I guess, where you were slated in that characterization.
Yeah. So, um, like they basically said that most people kind of fall into four categories.
Okay.
So let me find those real quick. So most people either fall into the category of secure.
Hmm.
I mean, they have a secure attachment style. Uh, the anxious ambivalent, and then you have the fearful avoidant and the dismissive avoidant. Um, and
So
I'm kind of
fearful avoidant means I don't want to get into sort of deeper relationships, essentially.
well, fearful avoidant are people who they have a fear of rejection and
Hmm.
being abandoned.
Yep.
So they avoid relationships for that reason because they're afraid of rejection and abandonment.
So you don't even put yourself
Um,
out there at that point.
right.
Okay.
Or you will, but you constantly have this fear and this nagging fear in the back of your head that this person's going to abandon me and leave me. So it kind of leads to people being clingy,
Hmm.
and people being um, they're either like super clingy or they're like super jealous and possessive because they're afraid
Okay.
of losing the person.
Yep.
Um, and then this dismissive avoidant. Now this is a person, and this is the category that I fell into. A dismissive avoidant is somebody who they don't have that fear of rejection and abandonment, but they
Yeah.
still kind of avoid like close relationships.
Yeah. And then what was the other two?
The other two is secure, and then you have anxious ambivalent. So the secure one style are comfortable establishing like emotional bonds with people. It says they have no qualms about depending on others and having others depend on them, and they do not constantly worry about being abandoned or rejected. The fearful, we talked about the fearful avoidant. Um, and again, it just says, they extremely worried about being rejected and abandoned, and will react to distancing themselves from others. So the anxious ambivalent attachment style, they are also fearful of being rejected and abandoned. But in this case, will respond. Okay, so that's the one that responds by the clinging.
Okay.
So it's the anxious ambivalent. Those are the ones that get clingy.
Man, I feel like there should be a hybrid, because when you and I talked, I was like, oh, I probably am the dismissive avoidant,
Mm-hmm.
just
Yep.
because,
And why did you say
uh,
that? Because, like, honestly, and I don't know, maybe this is just me being on the outside looking in, but I mean, like, I would say you're secure.
not, I mean, yeah, I mean, to an extent. I mean, I guess I
Mm-hmm.
don't like, I think that, man, I think it depends on, I guess, what stage this sort of kicks in for me because, like with the um emotional expression piece of it, like that I don't
Mm-hmm.
have that, like that sort of when I have extreme passion or love for somebody, or I don't get like extremely excited and jump up and down with joy and stuff like that. I'm kind of like, all right, it's cool. It
Mm-hmm.
is what it is. Like,
So you
and
kind of like,
so
so you kind of have like a kind of like a nonchalant kind of disposition
yeah,
towards
I
things.
mean,
Yeah.
yeah, towards a lot of things. And
Yeah.
so some may see that as dismissive, and that
Mm-hmm.
I like, but then like the deep relationship thing is kind of like the same thing. Like um, I don't feel that I form like a lot of deep bonds with people. I have surface
Okay.
level, across the board,
Okay.
um, but I don't have a lot of, hey, let me just call to see how you're doing, or like
Mm-hmm.
sharing deep emotion. I'm
Mm-hmm.
probably, and some of my friends would probably say it the most. I'm probably not um, the open sharing feel like, and it's just over the past couple of years I've gotten to where I'll tell my buddies, like, I love y'all and stuff like that,
Yeah.
or an express emotion or that level of gratitude to sort of establish a deep relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but a lot of it, man, has been surface level, to be completely honest with you.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. So you probably right there with me at dismissive avoiding because I'm not. I'm the type of person like I don't really get attached to too many people. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of bonds that, you know, um, I have a lot of friends that like, yeah, like, that's my guy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We close or
Yeah.
whatever, but
Yeah.
it's kind of like, but for the most part, like I'm not attached to it. Like if we go months without seeing each other, that's fine with me. like I don't get emotionally attached to too many people. So and I know, a lot of where that stems from with me. And um but yeah, you're probably right there with me at dismissive avoidant.
Well, and I think, so. I mean, like I said, there are a few to where I'm like, yeah, that's my, like I call them brother and sister like type
Right,
friends, but it's
right,
not like, oh, everybody's my bestie. Like you look on everybody's
right. Yeah,
Instagram
yeah.
story, and I'm like, yo, I thought this person was your bestie. Now you got this
Yeah.
is your best friend in the whole world. Uh,
And see, I guess that's one of the reasons why I thought you would be secure is because, like, I've been around you in times, and it seems like you never meet a stranger. It's like you get super cool with people, like just right off the bat. So I didn't realize that you wasn't developing these like close relationships with people.
Oh, yeah, but then I also don't seek out relationships either. Like I'm just like, hey,
Mm,
and I may be charismatic,
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
nice and genuine to everybody,
right.
and so I may feel like a friend and stuff like that. Um, but there's not a lot that I do to maintain constant communication with a lot of people. Like I have a lot of people that I've associated with over the years, and I would
Mm,
call them a friend, but they're not an enemy whenever I talk to them. But there's not a lot that I do to seek out. Um,
mm.
so
Yeah, like I know with my life is like my friends, they're kind of fragmented. So
mhm,
my, so all the different parts of my life are kind of fragmented. Like I got this group of friends over here, then I got that group of friends over there, and then I got that group of friends and family over here. And it's um, like I got like my guys, Ernest and Marcus, um, who I've been knowing them since high school,
yeah,
but there's been there's been periods in that friendship where I didn't see them for years at a time
yeah,
and wouldn't talk to them for months at a time. But it do- it wasn't like any bearing on the relationship. It didn't that had no determination on how close of friends we was. It was just like, all right, y'all doing y'all thing, I'm doing my thing. I see y'all. I see you when I see you.
yeah, for sure.
So,
And like, I mean, I have the same thing. Like, I have a friend that I've known since seventh grade at like Highlands.
mm-hmm,
I still like message his mom, like, because I used to go over there and hang out with the whole family, like go stay for
mm-hmm,
dinner, stay the night, do church lock-ins
mm-hmm,
and stuff like that.
mm-hmm,
And so I'll keep contact with people, but it's not like that. It's a select few, and then it's like I'm not seeking out a lot. But I will sometimes check in
mm-hmm.
to show gratitude and
Yeah.
stuff like that for friendship over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, it's not everybody. Like I'm not seeking validation from everybody. But
Right.
then also the other part of that is probably because we moved around a lot.
Yeah.
So
And that's what
uh,
it is with me.
yeah, it was constantly having to ramp up the fastest way possible um, to not be the new kid or the outcast. So like every time we move, typically within the first month or two in a new class, I mean, I already had like a group of people I hung out with. When
Mm-hmm.
we moved from Lake Highlands um, to where like I was supposed to be like JV football. I was supposed to be like the top show choir already and the top regular choir. And then I moved to North Garland, had to start from completely ground zero. I think within the first month or two, I was already these people had gone to junior high and stuff like that together forever. I was already hanging out at lockers, making friends with people, and they're like, "Yo, where
Mm-hmm.
did you go to school?" I'm like, "Oh, I went to like Highlands," and they're like, "How do you know all these people?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it's kind of like just ramping up as fast as possible. And so I've taken that philosophy um, throughout life.
yeah,
And I guess that's where I'm not fearful to talk to anybody, just because I'm
right.
like, man, like I can do this. I can figure out your moves, your cues, and understand a little bit about you with just body language. And my big thing is music. Like if I know the kind of music you listen to, I can typically tell your personality, and I can
Mm-hmm.
understand how to maneuver a little bit better. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. Like for me, us moving around so much, it definitely, kind of had not kind of, it definitely had an impact on how I
Hmm.
develop relationships because, you know, like
I
there
might
was
not be here. You may not be here.
right, right, exactly. So it's kind of like, because I know at one point, like I was at a different, like I changed schools like every year at one point.
Hmm.
Um, so it was kind of like I don't know if you know this, but I was actually supposed to graduate from North Garland.
Hmm.
but, but it was like I was over at Lakeview and I got tired of changing schools. I was like, man, this is my last year. Like, and I'm tired of changing schools all the time. So let me just stay here and graduate here.
Yeah.
But I was for my senior year, I was actually supposed to switch schools again.
Yeah.
Um, but so I mean that definitely affected how I develop relationships and throughout my life because it's kind of like I don't really want to get too attached to nobody because I'm gonna be somewhere completely different next year. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
And that's kind of like so pre pandemic, that's
mhm,
kind of the track that we were on for Andrew, and honestly, like what we hope for Marley and stuff like that is just because um so we're not thinking, oh, we're moving or we're going here. We set our foundation, and if we move, we want to move somewhere close to where
mhm,
Andrew can still go to the same school, but we can also um, possibly upgrade the house and stuff like
mhm,
that. But
mhm,
we still want to keep him in the same system, the same flow, to where he
right,
has what we didn't have, and that's that same kind of
some sort of stability.
stability. And
Yeah,
if people around him move, like I've seen it, like two or three kids in and out of his class throughout the year. One girl was there for like 4 or 5 months, and then she's like, "Oh yeah, I got to move. I'm moving again."
mm,
And it's kind of like I was like, "Man, that's like I know how that feels." We've never
yeah,
moved uprooted in the beginning in the middle of a year, but I know
mhm,
how it feels to be that kid that moves, and so um, I want him to have a structure to where he can still like all through elementary, like he can walk through the halls and the teachers know who he is, and the old elders at the school, the principal knows who he is, like all through,
mhm,
um, and then now he has sort of foundation to where he can go to the next school and it won't be uncomfortable for him.
yeah,
And then like we have Marley coming up after him. By the time he's in, middle school, like she's going to be coming like up in elementary, and it's going to be like, oh, you're Andrew's sister, and kind of have that kind
right,
of thing.
right,
To where
yeah,
we didn't have, um, and so I feel like that's good. But then I also there's part of me that wonders like, are they going to get that trait to where they can go anywhere and make friends and not rely on um, a crutch and have crutches.
yeah, yeah. Because
Um,
I mean, like you know, as you become an adult, where you may have to move around quite a bit as an
mhm.
adult. You need to be able to, you know, develop the skill of developing new relationships all the time.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's best the more you learn in your childhood, the better adjusted you're going to be when you become an adult.
Well, and it's funny because um, even at university in the classes that I'm in, there are or the classes that I teach, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
there oftentimes are an example, which this is a prime point, kind of your relationship style, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there was a group project, and there was some people who didn't want to do it in a group, and I'm like, man, so when you get into a work environment, you're gonna have to work with people that you
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily. You have to figure out how to work with people that you don't know, you've never talked to, and try to get everybody on the same page. Like projects come
Mm-hmm.
up,
Mm-hmm.
you could get stuck with a bum who has been skating by. You don't even know how they still have a job,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, the success or failure reflects on all of y'all. So y'all have to figure
Mm-hmm.
out a way to work with each other's relationships and get it done.
And I mean,
And
and
there is
that's
going to be no let me write this letter and back out of this and do this on my own sort of thing.
right. And I mean, that's even like maybe worst case scenario, but there may even be a situation that comes up where you have to work with somebody and they're not necessarily a bum, but maybe they don't know what they're doing, and you have to, like you kind of have to take the lead and you know carry like like lead guide the whole thing, or you may have to work with somebody who's from a completely different culture as you, somebody who have a
Hmm.
completely different communication style to you, somebody who, like, if y'all wasn't working on this project together, probably somebody, because of y'all personalities are so different, you probably wouldn't even think to be talking to this person. So,
Yeah.
the more of those situations you have when you're younger, I think the better you're going to be equipped to handle it as you get, as you get into corporate America, as you start working in as an adult. So,
Well, and then to realize that not everybody has to be your bestie, but they have to be,
right,
you can work with people to get the job done. And
absolutely,
so that's kind
yeah.
of like, and especially you see it in kids, and like I said, especially the early developmental stages, to where there
Mm-hmm,
was a point to where um, like Andrew would go to school, and like a lot of times he would end up playing by himself, just
mm-hmm,
because. Um, Not school. Like this is when he's in daycare or whatever. He ended up
mm-hmm,
playing by himself a lot just because um, his language skills are up there, and so. But then also we have sort of restrictions to where we don't let him watch a lot of the stuff that other kids like. But then also he's kind of eclectic, and he's not into a lot of stuff that other, like right now we're rewatching VR Troopers. Like, so he's into nostalgia. We've watched all the Power Rangers, and so he really doesn't have anything uh relatable to talk with these kids
mm-hmm,
about, because they're like, I
mm-hmm,
don't know what a VR Trooper is, or I know
yeah,
Power Rangers, but I don't get so down in the weeds where I'm watching every single series from like
mm-hmm,
96 to 2012.
mm-hmm,
Um, and that's just how he rolls and how he operates. And so there was a point to where he was playing by himself, like I said, and doing a lot. But then at time, I mean, you walk in, like every time he walks in, people are calling out his name, and I'm like, how are you such a loner? But it's because he's a leader too, and he wants to do his own thing.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so, like, if people don't want to do his thing, he's cool. He's like, all right, peace out. Like, I'm gonna do my
I'm gonna do my
thing,
own thing. Yeah.
which I think is great. And I think that's a testament to kind of what we've done. But at the same time, it's partially because through those developmental years, he didn't have like, so he didn't go to daycare until he was 2. Then we had a bad experience with a horrible daycare, and then we switched to a different one, to where he
Mm-hmm,
really started blossoming and developing. But
mm-hmm,
from all the way from a baby until 2 years of age, he was with grandma. And so there was
mm-hmm,
no other kids. Grandma was an adult, and he'd get to play by him. He played by himself all day. So there's no socializing and stuff like that. And so
mm-hmm,
in those formidable years, it was me, Ashley, grandma. And so that was his foundation. That's where he developed relationship skills, talking, and stuff
mm-hmm,
like that.
mm-hmm,
And we didn't talk to him like a baby. Nobody talks to him like a
mm-hmm.
baby. And so
Yeah.
he wasn't around to absorb behavioral issues, the biting, punching, all that stuff
Mm-hmm,
from other
mm-hmm.
kids, the losing your business. Like, he wasn't developing any of that at this point,
Mm-hmm.
because he didn't have anything to mimic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think because I got friends with kids, man, and like I know one particular situation where um a friend of mine, and well, both of them are my friends, but my guy wasn't getting along with his child's mother, and at the time, she was pregnant, and even after the child arrived, it was kind of like they still was at odds with each other. So, and I used to have to warn him and her, like, yo, y'all have to be careful about um doing certain things around your child, because they'll remember that. like even if it's not consciously, subconsciously, that gets into them, to where they'll start to mimic that as they get older, like
Right.
those a lot of those emotional things that you guys do around them and present to them, like children are sponges, they soak that stuff up, you know what I mean, and you'll start to see it come out as they get older and become adults. And I know this because I've watched him go through it, you know what I mean, like a lot of the things that um, he experienced when he was a kid. You know, you see it now as an adult. You know what I mean? A lot of the relationships, a lot of the emotional brokenness that he was around when he was a kid, you see it coming out in how he deals with things in his relationships as an adult. So, you know, I just used to try to have to warn him and both of them about, you know, those type of things and how they allow those things to affect their child.
Yeah, some people can't see it though, just because they're in the thick of it,
Mm-hmm.
and because they haven't seen any other viewpoint or had anybody to sort of point that out to them, like outside
Mm-hmm.
perspective looking in. And so you just, I mean, you look at it with kind of what's going on today, like with racism and all that stuff. It's just repeated model behavior.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, it, like real quick, like I know even like a lot of my female friends with kids, like I try to warn them about bringing, you know, men in and out of the house, you know,
mhm,
around their children, because you allow your children to get attached to these guys, and then a month or so later, the guy disappears, and what's that's doing to your child.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like they're getting attached to these people, and then that person is being ripped out of their life again. You know what I mean? And it's a repetitive cycle that you got going on. So you really have to be careful with that.
yeah, 100%. Especially like I said, in those formative years, um, where they're sponges pretty much. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you look at like just their brains and how they're soaking up and learning at a rapid rate to adapt
Mm-hmm.
as human beings. Like that's why
Mm-hmm.
most people, like if you want your kid to learn anything, they say to do it between the ages of 1 and 6, just because they're just so adaptable and
Mm-hmm.
malleable at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's why, I mean, another one of those things where like letting your kid watch TV, like you just sit them in front of the TV, like they're just malleable, so they're soaking up stuff. And if you don't limit that, the video games and all that stuff at that early age, then it's just uh, like you're taking away from your relational skill with them. You're gonna make them distant, avoidant, and or
Yeah.
anxious. And so yeah, no, it's just man, it's interesting. I really like that you brought that to the table, but then I also would be interesting too if we were able to get like a parenting or a child psychologist on, or some
Mm-hmm.
sort of social worker, social
Mm-hmm.
somebody who has that socio economic background or whatever, who can kind of talk about it a little bit, just to um, go deeper, kind of than what we're
Mm-hmm.
able to, and we can
Mm-hmm.
bounce questions off of. So yeah, if you're listening, watching, and you are a clinical psychologist or child psychologist, we'd love to hear from you,
Absolutely.
because we think it's a very valid and valuable conversation to have. So yeah, with that, I have nothing else to talk about.
I'm good. I
I was gonna say,
think,
I was
yeah,
gonna
I think
say,
we've covered it.
I'm surprised that your internet has lasted this long.
Really?
Well, the last time it cut out, I don't know what happened last time.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what happened.
But yeah, so this has been another episode of the Simple Dad Podcast. If you like what you hear, go ahead and like and subscribe, and follow us on Simple Dad Pod on Instagram, and Simple Dad Pod on Twitter. Um, and then I am at Quincy Forte across all platforms, and you are
You can hit me up at theurbanadvocate.com, and all of my social media platforms is on there.
awesome. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for rocking with us another episode, and we'll see you next time.